How you doing?
Good. Welcome to CRE8. I'm so excited that you made it. Thank you for being here today. I'm sure
Yeah,
you
thank
have a
you for
very
having
busy
me.
schedule.
It's been
Uh,
about as open as it's ever been, actually.
I know, right? I know. Like people are like, oh yeah, let me check my agenda. It's so cute. Um, I absolutely love everything that you do, and I've told you a million times. But just for everybody who hasn't heard about you or seen your beautiful stuff, would you mind telling us the wonderful things that you create?
So I refer to myself as an interdisciplinary artist. I work with painting, drawing, collage, video, and performance art. Pretty much anything is game. Uh, whatever materials I have, whatever the idea is, however it can express it, I keep myself pretty open to exploration. I'm kind of all about like experimenting with different materials and stuff. So
During our pop-up gallery last month in February, we had the incredible fortune of having you be part of our pop-up gallery, which you exhibited one of your beautiful paintings that you have done, and also you had a performance piece. Would you mind talking to us about it just a little bit for everybody who has not had a chance to go to that show?
yeah, absolutely. So the piece that I did for the first CRE8 show was called Anonymous Letters to a Stranger. And the premise was that uh, I did 2 sessions for both nights, and I sat for 3 hours unmoving each night, covered in a sheet and blindfolded. And I had a setup with stationery and pens and some signs that kind of let people know that they could write a letter. And so I gave some suggestions to people that they could write a letter to a stranger or to me, the artist, or that they could write a letter to their future self or their past self or somebody they wish they could write a letter to. Um, so I invited people to write those letters and to not write their name on it, so no identifying information, so that it would be anonymous. And it actually, the idea began with a writing group that I was meeting with for a little while here in Highland Park, where I live. Um, and there was a prompt that got me thinking about writing letters, and I ended up writing a letter to my father, kind of like an imaginary letter to my father, not anything I would actually send him, but like a very like guttural, honest letter. And so it got me thinking, what would our letters be like if they were anonymous? You know, I feel like we're pretty known right now as far as the internet goes. It's kind of hard to present anything anonymously anymore. You know, everything is connected via IP address, even if you try to have an anonymous username. Um, and so it's interesting to go back to kind of just pen and paper where there's no evidence of where it came from, you know, like, so I kind of like that idea of going back to analog and exploring kind of how you would write if no one knew it was you. So
I thought that was really wonderful and such a deep kind of like experience as a viewer, as a somebody who was able to participate, to really just say something from the heart that fundamentally won't be judged based on who you are, just kind of like you read the letter, but you don't know who it comes from. So it leaves it very neutral also. And it gives you a space, like you were saying, where you just you are allowed to be honest without really having to worry about what is their response, because they won't be a
yeah,
response, which is really precious, I think. Do
yeah,
you?
the consequences removed, you know,
Yes,
like that idea.
exactly. And I know that you were thinking of racking your brain around what to really do with these letters that you received, because they're all so beautiful. But I was also wondering, like, would you mind telling us from your perspective how it was sitting there for 3 hours not moving? Because in, like you said, in a world where we're so fast moving, like we never ever sit anywhere for 3 hours, let alone not look at our phone or be blindfolded, and especially when you're in public. And it's such a a beautiful image to look at from the outside, and it's such a very Marina Abramovich kind of like inspired, kind of like piece, that I'm just thinking like, that must have been, you must have gone through all sorts of emotions sitting there for 3 hours, because that's a long time.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. Marina Abramovich's The Artist is Present was actually where I derived a little of my inspiration from, as far as the idea of me being there, because the physical presence is something that you can't substitute that. So when I had the idea and I presented it, I really did not know what I was getting into. And the first night was extremely difficult. I found myself, I went through so many strange stages of just psychological and body experience. Like, I just found myself really focused on my breathing, to the point where it felt like I couldn't breathe. Like, I just constantly felt like I needed to cough. Like, I was swallowing nonstop. I was having trouble. Like, I mean, I lost all track of time at some point. It was interesting because I had a timer on my phone. And so the only thing that was on me was my phone underneath the sheet that I was just gripping onto. And it had the timer on it. So I knew that when my phone went off, it had been the 3 hours. But like, I found myself just gripping for trying to figure out what time it was. I was trying to like listen to the DJ playing music and try to like guess how long the songs were. But because it was a DJ mix, it was kind of an ongoing thing. So at some point I thought that I had it down and the timer didn't go off. And then I started like having a panic where I thought maybe my phone had died. And so I like kind of moved my phone a little bit to type an incorrect password, because I knew it would vibrate a little bit if it was still on, and it was still on. So then at that point I was just like, wow, it could be any time. I could have miscounted at any point. Like,
was there ever a time when you felt like you were able to surrender?
No, I would not let myself surrender. I was really like, I really just kept telling myself, no, you said you would sit here for 3 hours. Like, I was really dedicated and refused to move. And I mean, the whole time I had to keep convincing myself that it was worth staying there. Like, there were definitely some moments where I was like, I could stop early. People don't know that I had a time for myself. It was definitely a test of like my own personal commitment, and the fact that the only person that I would have been letting down is myself, because I knew that I was the only person who set that time for myself. I felt like I needed to follow through with it to prove to myself that I could do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let Diego.
My cat's inside. She'd probably be crawling all over the computer too. But
like, who is this amazing girl? Yeah, that's really cool, and I'm really, really glad and honored that I was able to be there, because it was such a it was a once in a lifetime kind of like experience. Because like you're saying, performance art is like, you cannot sell performance art. There's something so raw and real about it. It's just, that you can only take the experience away with it, which is really awesome.
yeah, you
But
have to
I know that yeah, but I know that you also have been really using this quarantine time to come up with more creative ways for you to express yourself. Do you mind telling us what you've been doing?
Yeah, so it's been pretty intense. It's been almost a month since I've been laid off from my day job. So I work in the food industry as my day job, and so I got laid off almost a month ago. And like the next day, like right after I found out for sure that I was not going back to work for a while, I jumped right into this series. Well, it actually originally started, it was just going to be a performance, a live stream performance that I was calling Going Blindly into the Future. And basically I had set up this, this painting behind me is kind of what's on the wood frame right now, but I've been using this wood frame because it's like one of 3 that I have currently, and I don't have any more money for supplies right now, so I've just been utilizing what I have. And I just stretched a piece of fabric on it and set up a bunch of paints and brushes and used the same sheet covering me and the blindfold from the performance at the CRE8 show. And I live streamed myself doing a painting blindfolded. And like I said, it originally started as just going to be a one-off, but the experience was so powerful that I've pretty much been doing, I've done 4 so far, and I've got one more sheet that fits the stretcher, so I'll probably do another one either this week or next week. And it's just kind of been an opportunity for me to just purely express emotion without worrying about aesthetic or anything like that. And I kind of set it up the same way that I normally paint, where I'll set up paints and brushes ahead of time. Like I'll kind of like decide my palette ahead of time anyway. But instead for this one, I've just removed my eyes essentially. So I feel like there's been like less of a self-criticism going on when I work that way. And it's kind of allowed me to explore a little more of the physical experience of painting, which is something that I'm drawn to anyway. But it's definitely removed some of that like aesthetic criticism.
How has the experience been for you when you uncover what it looks like? Is that for you like, does it look kind of like what you had in mind anyway, or is it completely like?
It's like nothing I ever could have made.
Really?
Like I don't know how I would ever even repeat it. Yeah. I mean, already when I make a painting, I tend to look at it and say like, how can I even repeat that? I mean, even when I do a series of work, like there are definitely variations based on how I'm feeling at the time or what I'm experiencing at the time. But yeah, I mean, the first live stream that I did was pretty funny because I took the blindfold off and looked at it and I just started laughing. I just was like, oh my God, what is it? I was like, it's so like, there's so much paint on the surface. Like I tend to like go pretty thin for the most part. Like I don't really use like a lot of paint. Sometimes I'll do some stuff where I like lay puddles of paint down to let dry, but I would say in a general sense I do a lot of like scraping kind of stuff. So that first one, it's just covered, and I was just so shocked at what it looked like. It looked totally weird and crazy.
Do you feel like you've gotten better at it? Meaning like if you use less paint, you kind of like a little more receptive to what's happening, and the more and more you do it, you feel like it actually starts looking like what you had in mind, or you're still every time is just kind of like a whole new experience?
I mean, it definitely looks different than what I imagine it would look like regardless. But I do feel like I've been tapping in each one. I've been tapping in a little more to, I guess, in a sense, like just more awareness of the space. Like that first one, I was just thinking performatively, and I was just kind of attacking the surface and putting a lot of paint on it. And then each one thereafter, I've been kind of like thinking to myself, okay, like, let's not make a mess. Let's actually try to like feel the space a little bit and kind of let it like, thinking a little more about physical pattern making and stuff. And so I feel like they've evolved into they kind of make more visual sense in the later iterations. So it's interesting to see them, like the images of them all next to each other, because of course I can't see the actual paintings next to each other because I use the same frame, so they're all rolled up and stored right now. But I I've seen, like, just looking at the images next to each other, it's really interesting because
Wow.
they really have evolved,
Mm.
and it's cool to
Do
see
you
that
go
evolution.
in it with an objective, or do you, it's just completely intuitive, however you feel in the moment?
It's totally intuitive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely kind of a way that I paint,
Hmm.
um, as far as like the physical way that I paint, that I don't really think has changed that much necessarily. It's just that instead of making decisions with my eyes, I'm making decisions with my body. And I think that, honestly, I think the work is more powerful right now. Like, I really feel like I'm tapping into something that, like, eliminates, like I said, like eliminates my inner critic, my self-inflicting
Yeah.
sort of, like, criticizing of, like, oh, I don't like this, I'll paint over it or whatever. um, and there also feel like there's more of an energy to the work too.
Yeah.
Like, because one of the rules for myself is, like, it's all done in the blindfolded session and then it's done. I can't touch it anymore. I
I
just
was
leave
just
it
gonna
there.
ask you, you don't go over it and add details or change anything. You just,
I
the way
haven't
you
done
have
anything with them. That's so
amazing.
far that's been my objective. And
Yeah.
I've actually been, it's funny because at the beginning of this year, before any of this quarantine stuff happened, I had already started this daily project for the full year, where I set myself up to do a small 10 by 6 inch painting, write myself a letter, do a drawing in a sketchbook, and take a black and white film photograph of myself, like a portrait, every day. And so I had already started doing that at the beginning of January.
Wow.
And one of the rules for myself for that whole project was that I wasn't allowed to look at anything from the day before. So
Mm.
all the letters I've written to myself in my journal are all sealed up in envelopes, which I never do. I always look back. I
Yeah.
always look back at everything I've done and, like, reference it and all this stuff.
Mhm.
So this is kind of like, in a way, it's a little bit of a continuation in
Yeah.
a more extreme way. I'm working on larger surfaces, but the initial idea is there. It's like what do I create when I'm not self-referencing?
Mm.
And it has got me to the point where it's made me think, like, so what actually is a painting? Each one of them, now that I'm starting on a surface without referencing things, so what is it then? I have to decide every day what is a painting.
Wow.
Which I
Amazing.
think has been a really good practice for me. I mean, I tend to procrastinate sometimes, where I, like, um, won't work on something for a while, or a lot of times I just will say that it's not finished, or just decide it's not done yet. So one of the things with quarantine is I've really been, like, digging up all this old stuff and being like, all right, it's done, stretch it, photograph it, it's done. Like,
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I was just thinking about that earlier. I was like, personally, a lot of, because my house has been so clean, and I'm like, wow, I mean, I like it clean, but I don't know, I always have time to keep it tidy. And I was like, I wonder why that is. And I think it's the same with artwork. It's because if you remove the main source of that sucks your energy, which is, you got to go out, you got to make a living, you got to pay the bills. If you remove all that and you really have the time and energy to dedicate it to what fuels you, what drives you, what makes you you, one, you get to be completely rediscovering yourself, and two, you use that time to be creative instead of putting it into stuff that usually, would the regular people do. Like, we all so trained to go to work and come home and cook and eat and sleep. But like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
remove all that and you, like, it's, I mean, I know it has, so many emotions, this quarantine, but I do believe that fundamentally, if we really take it as an as a kind of like an option, or a way of rediscovering ourselves and really what makes us happy and who we are, I think then we can all come back out being much better people.
Yeah, in the very least, more focused.
Yeah, and
Like,
more appreciative, and just kind of like see, and look back and see like all the beautiful things that you have made. I think that's it sounds really scary to paint with your eyes closed. I mean, it does sound like a whole experience where you, first of all, you have to remove the critic, like, because you're so trained to see things, and you're so trained to know what you like and what you dislike. And then if you
yeah.
remove all that, then you just kind of go by your intuition. That's really insane. And you also told me that you are going to have a art gallery or an art opening, like a reception. Do you mind talking to us about that?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because a lot of the stuff that I've been doing during the quarantine is actually stuff that I've like had vague ideas for in the past and just either never had the time or hadn't actualized them yet.
Mhm.
And just something about what's going on is just really like kicked me in the butt and made me think like, oh my God, I
Exactly.
just need to do all the things that I've even vaguely thought of, because at
Mhm.
this point, like just doing stuff is keeping me going. And so I've always been obsessed with the LA River, like the concrete walls of the LA River. And I've always thought, God, there should be like murals here or like art here or something. Like I've always just thought about that, about the LA River. And there's like a location to go down into the bike path in the park that's in the neighborhood. And so every once in a while I've gone down there just walking along the bike path. And so I've decided that, with all things considered, that I'm gonna do an art show down in the LA River on the concrete walls. Um, and the show is gonna be called Off the Frame. And so I'm basically going to be showing 7 of my large scale paintings. And in that 7, 4 of them are actually the blindfolded paintings. And basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just the fabric itself with no wood, and affix them with like double sided tape all along the concrete walls. And I'm going to like do like a little curated thing. And I've got labels. I'm going to put a sign up with my name and all that stuff. But I'm going to do a live stream kind of like opening reception on Instagram this Sunday, the 12th at 5 p.m. And so I'm going to be live streaming. It's just going to be, me kind of talking about the paintings and showing them. And, I would love for anybody to join me, ask questions about the work, or, ask anything really. I mean, the online has kind of become our solace for communicating with each other at this point. So I just kind of figure it's a bizarre state we're in right now. So I've not been much into doing like lots of internet stuff, but I think recently it's just made sense to me. And so the idea is that after the reception, I'm going to share a map point with the exact address of where the work is, and where's the easiest way to access it from the nearest bike path entrance. And then I'm going to leave it up for a week and encourage people to go and see it if they're in the neighborhood, on their own time with the social distancing and everything. I've seen already when I've been down there some people jogging and biking and stuff. So, and then I'm going to do a live stream every day this next week with updates, like, because for me, it's kind of a little bit of a social experiment. Like I'm going to leave the paintings there unattended, unmonitored, no security or anything, no, like there's just going to be some signs for what they are. But, I'm genuinely curious. Like, I feel like I, I don't know. I'm interested to see if they get stolen, if they get graffitied on, like if people leave me notes. I mean, I'm all about it. I'm interested to see what happens to them. If anything, maybe nothing happens to them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of curious to me. I had heard a while back about um, a gallery show I think it was in New York, where it was just, I think it was like a in construction space or something, and they just put up a bunch of art, basically put up this art show and just left the door open, and and you could just go and see the art. And there was no time that it was open or closed. It was just, the door was always open. There was no security there. There was nobody guarding it. And I think the paintings even had prices on them. Like, I think they were even for sale. And it was kind of like a social experiment. Like, what happens if you just put art places and kind of like remove it's not that you're removing the value from them, but you're definitely like, you're kind of inviting people, you're letting people know, like, this is something you can be a part of too. This is not something that is for someone specifically. Because I think that that's kind of what troubles me sometimes with gallery spaces, is that it tends to get like a specific crowd of people, and a lot of the art world in general. I see a lot of the same people at different venues that are all like around the same like kind of status or whatever for galleries. And so that's why I like to stay involved with alternative spaces as much as I can, because I feel like, I just meet new people at those spaces because they are spaces that say, hey, you can come in here. You don't have to be wearing a fancy outfit. You don't have to be clanking a glass of wine. You can just come in here and hang out, and it's cool. And you're allowed to see the art too. It's for you too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like any alternative opportunity for people to experience art to where they don't feel like a security guard's like breathing down their neck or something, or like the gallery attendant has to give you the price list in order for you to see the titles. It's just weird, like it can be kind of daunting for people who are not like, suited up collectors or whatever. Like,
may I ask you about the painting behind you? Is that one that was birthed out of the blindfold?
this is actually this is not done yet. It's the sheet that fits it right now, but it's part of a previous project where I was just taking all these scraps of fabric and sewing them on.
Okay.
And so I
Are
think
you
this is going to be
going into the blinds?
Yeah, this is going to be the next blindfolded painting. It's actually it's going to be a weird experiment because this one already has fabric sewn onto it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to like see what happens when I have a
Yeah.
physical element to it that's not flat. Like,
And do you do your lives on Instagram, Facebook, both, or just one?
I did the first 3 on Facebook. I did the last one on Instagram. I guess it depends.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the weird thing. It's like, although I like doing it on Facebook, the only people who can watch it are people who are friends with me on Facebook.
I was just gonna say, because for anybody who's watching right now who wants to tune in, they have to find you on Facebook, and then
it's crazy. Like, so I think I'm probably gonna keep doing them like the last one on Instagram, because it just seems like it's a wider audience. I mean, I tried to do it on YouTube, but I guess on YouTube you have to have like a certain amount of I don't know if you have to have a certain amount of subscribers or views or something in order to do the live video. Because I was getting all ready to do it, and I went and I pressed it, and it said, "You can't do live video." And I was like, "What?" I had like already told everybody I was gonna do it. Like, I was like, "Oh crap! I don't know how to do this." I mean, I'd never done a live video. What is it?
You switched them to Instagram, your followers?
Yeah. So I think I'm just probably going to end up doing it on Instagram again, because then it's, like I said, because it's more accessible that way.
Yeah.
So
Very awesome. Do you have other pieces with you right there, or is this the only one you want to show us right now?
Oh, this is just the one that's outside.
Yeah, that's okay. And then on Instagram and all your social media, we can see all the beautiful things that you do anyway.
Oh yeah. There's definitely there's all of the work I've made up to date on Instagram. Like, I mean, I try to keep my website updated, but it's definitely more of like a curated thing. Whereas my Instagram is kind of where you can go to just see me working on stuff and in progress. And I mean, especially since I've been using a lot of the same like frames to make work, like most of the work is actually rolled up or folded up and stored.
Wow, that's so cool. And just for everybody who's watching, we have created hashtags for people that come up with creative ideas to stay creative during quarantine, and also to kind of like just give a message of hope of, just kind of like, hey, you're not alone, and this is what I've been doing. Why don't you, try to find inspiration, or hopefully you can draw inspiration for somebody else. And the hashtags are create with an 8 hope, or creating hope. So we can all just tag along and see and keep inspiring each other, which will be really fun. And then everybody can find you on social media and Instagram and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So exciting. I'm super excited for Sunday. If it's not raining, I think that's the day that you said it, right?
Yeah, because I postponed it. I was going to do it last Sunday, and then not only was it raining Sunday morning, but it also was predicted to rain all week, which it has been. So
yeah. And next week is supposed to be clear?
Next week, according to the weather report, it's supposed to be clear. Like I think Saturday into Thursday so far, it said it's supposed to be clear. So
nice.
Hope
so
so.
It's going to be up Sunday to Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday to Sunday.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Kayla. This is so exciting.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here with us.
me.
I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome.
And we'll see you soon. We'll see you Sunday. We can chime in if you have a live. Can we just call in into your live and ask you questions about it?
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know how it works. So if you know how it works more than I do, like I said, it's like the second time I've ever done Instagram Live will be this next time. So
that's awesome. I'm super excited. What a great idea. I love that. What a great idea. Super inspirational. Thank you for showing us how to be creative during this time and make beautiful things.
Yeah, I hope everybody is
using
it how they can, like every coping mechanism is valid. So, cook that delicious food, bake that loaf of bread, make that painting, do whatever you need to we're going to get through this.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kayla. I love you, appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.
Milena.
See you next time.
Yeah.